Welcome back, y'all. Another episode of No Cap Sports. And we finna keep the series going. We got NFL divisional previews for y'all this week. We got the NFC South, man, home of the reigning Super Bowl champs, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So as we all know, Tom Brady got ring number 7 last year in Tampa Bay. They went in the regular season, they went 11-5, second in the division. When all that matters is they got that ring on the finger in the end. And if you look at their season, bro, you never would have thought they'd make it to where they made it to. Looking at how going into their week 13 bye, the team was 7-5 and fighting for a wild card spot. And they ended up in the wild card game, yes, made it to the Super Bowl. Like I said, that's all that matters. But looking at this season, they're returning all 22 starters. So what does that mean for the Bucs as they have some continuity into this upcoming season?
No, I definitely agree with that, Nick. The only thing is, like you pointed out, the 7-5 start, going into week 13, they're not going to be able to get into that slow of a start this season just because, we all know as athletes, being the reigning champion, they're going to be a target on your back. And, teams that necessarily aren't as good, they're going to be playing above their head. Teams that are going to be struggling or even playoff contenders, you're going to get every team's best shot. So I think if they come out that slow, I know it was only Arian and TB's first year working together, but if they come out to the same slow pace, I think it could end up being a lot worse for them. Because the team has the talent. We just talked about it. Bringing all 22 starters back, the talent is not the question. I think it's going to be about, the mentality, also, how the teams, like I said, teams are going to be playing above their head and how they're going to, take their best shot at Tampa Bay. But if they get off to that bad start, that slow start like they did last year, it can seriously impact them, not their playoffs, getting into the playoffs, but their seeding and also the confidence the team has going into week 17.
It's definitely going to be a target on their back. But when you have Tom Brady, it's hard to bet against them. And then also, they say offense sells tickets, defense wins championships. And the Buccaneers have one of the best defenses in the NFL. Like, if you go down their roster, all you see is name brand guys. Ndamukong Suh, he's past his prime, but he can still get it done. Vita Vea, Jason Pierre-Paul, Devin White, Levante David, Shaq Barrett, Antoine Winfield Jr., he's coming to his second year. He already looks like an all-pro type of guy, bro. They just have all these people on their roster. That's just the defense. Don't even get me started on the receiving corps. I mean, I think they'll be fine, but you never know, bro. Football is a game of chances.
Yeah. Going off what Van said, I definitely think that this is one of the rare defenses, elite defenses that are as equally stout against the run as in the past. We all know about Jason Pierre-Paul, one nine-finger man, still gets the QB, still rushing the
hamburger helper.
Still like some taco meat. Now, also, Shaq Barrett, you got two Pro Bowl level booking edge rushers that you can rely on to put pressure on their tackles, all getting everything. One thing I am concerned about is the depth behind those guys. If either one of those guys miss any amount of significant time, you don't have any proven pass rush behind them to coming to back them up. They didn't really draft any pass rush guys. They spent a 4th rounder on Jalen Darden, which is one of my favorite guys to come out of the draft. But that's the thing, especially in the way the league is headed to right now. If you can't get pressure on the quarterback, as much as I love Suh and Vita Vea, those are not guys that you're going to even rely on to get interior pressure. So I know it sounds really nitpicky, and I definitely don't think it should be a problem if everybody stays healthy. But just look out for Tampa Bay's pass rush if JPP or Shaq Barrett has to miss any significant amount of time.
Hey, yeah. Before we really get deep into it, where do y'all rank Antonio Brown in terms of wide receivers in the NFL right now?
Number 1.
You think he's the best receiver in the NFL right now?
Best receiver to ever play the game.
20.
You think he's the best receiver in the NFL right now? That's what you said.
I lied, bro. I lied. Y'all know AB my guy, bro. Man. Y'all know AB my guy.
You AB guy for sure.
But in half a season, it took time to get acclimated, and he showed he's still an elite guy. You look at the Super Bowl performance, over 60 yards a tutty. He's still an elite route runner, elite after the catch, and he's just one of the best guys in the league. I think one key thing about the Buccaneers last season is they started to pick up after their bye in Week 13. You look at the game they played right before their bye, a Week 12 loss to the Chiefs, who they eventually beat in the Super Bowl. But in that game, that was the game Tyreek went off, had 269 yards and 3 tutties. And before that game and going into that game, the Buccaneers were using a blitz-heavy approach to create pressure. But after that game, they took the bye week and realized, hey, we have 4 guys. We can just rely on them to create pressure on a consistent basis. Talking about the names you mentioned, Shaq Barrett, JPP, Vita Vea, and Nahak Madong. So after that game, they started playing more 2-high coverage, just letting that front 4 really take care of the box, along with linebacker play in there. And it paid dividends. As you look at the Bucs, they won their last 4 games by combined 73 points, bro. So they really put it together in those last 4 weeks of the season, and that had momentum for them into the playoffs. And so, like I said, they got all 22 guys coming back. So we'll see if that cohesion from the end of last season will follow through to the beginning of this season. Since we're talking about this season, we got to talk about the inevitable. Is Tom Brady going to fall off the cliff anytime soon?
I mean, it was kind of like the old. I mean, as this guy, it was all kind of the thing that we talked about with like the Spurs, kind of like Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Ginobili. They always looked like, especially that year that we upset them in the playoffs, that one 8 upset. They always looked older. They always looked like they were ready to fall off the cliff. But we have a guy like Tom Brady that is beating you with his mind and beating you obviously beating you before the ball is even snapped. It's just really hard to see that level of fall off. The drastic amount of falling off the cliff that you're referring to, Nick, until it actually happens. I mean, personally, I thought that was going to happen in New England when Logan Ryan picked him off as his last play of the Patriots, but obviously that didn't turn out right. So I'm going to hedge my bet and say until I see it happen, Tom Brady will be in Super Bowl contention. Tom Brady will be at an MVP level until I see him have a Peyton Manning level year with last year with the Broncos, where he can't throw the ball more than 30 yards down the field. But until that happens, I'm not betting against Tom Brady. I already lost my money once trying to do that.
Vance, what about you, bro?
I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. Hell no, Tom Brady is not falling off a cliff. He's not gonna fall off a cliff. I think he already has fell off the cliff somewhat, just like Josh said. He threw a game against the Titans 2 years ago that sent him out of New England. I think physically, but mentally, bro, he's the best in the game, the greatest ever in the game, bro. He's gonna know what you're doing before you even do it. So he already has that head start on you. So I feel as long as his mind is still working, his body's gonna keep him there. The only way he falls off the cliff is if he gets injured. That's the only way.
So to close this little segment out about the Buccaneers, this team brought back all 22 starters from last year, like we've been hitting on this whole time. Does this make them the favorite to repeat as Super Bowl champions? And the last team to do it was the Patriots in 2003-2004. And if the Bucs are to repeat, what do they need to improve on to increase their chances of being successful this season?
You said the last team was who?
The Patriots. The Patriots in 03-04.
And who was the quarterback?
Tom Brady.
Damn.
Of course they're going to repeat, bro. I'm not betting against them, bro. As long as they make the playoffs, they're going to win the Super Bowl.
I like it, man. I mean, I got to agree. I don't like agreeing with you guys, but, when you have, when you lose to a team in the regular season, especially in the manner they did, and you make that adjustment from, a lot of blitzing and man covers to the 2-high look, the cover 2 look, there's not a lot that you can really, there's not a lot that Kansas City, which I think is the only real competition they have in terms of repeating, you're going to be able to do with that. We can talk about them a little later, but there wasn't really any significant addition that they made. And, again, I know the 2 tackles were hurt in the Super Bowl game, but that defense was able to consistently get pressure before, like Nick said, not only against Kansas City, but the entire year. And that's not something that's going to change, at all. Because especially with a receiving core as dynamic as Kansas City, but with the rest of the league, if you can have 7 guys who consistently drop back and you're not having to blitz and create pressure, that takes a huge load off of your defensive coordinator and a huge load off your secondary guy. They don't have to, rely. They don't have to cover as much. So the only thing I see stopping Tampa Bay is significant injuries. I don't foresee that happening. So I think they're going to repeat.
I like it. That's 2 guarantees on the Buccaneers repeat. And I'm just going to throw the disclaimer in now. Don't put your money on what we say. Just going to say that.
Put your money on Tom Brady. That's what I'm telling you to do.
Don't come in our DMs asking us why we lost your money because we will block you.
Yeah, call Tom Brady, bro. On his little Instagram videos.
Hey, he had to throw Lombardi trophies around. He can slide his little $50 you lost on the parlay, bro. We ain't worried about it.
So, moving on to another team in the NFC South. A franchise in the same city just had some success in the NBA playoffs. we'll see if this NFL team can bounce back and get back to their glory days, considering they just made the Super Bowl in 2016. Talking about the Atlanta Falcons, man. Last season, 4-12. Started the season 0-5. Week 2 blew a 19-point lead versus the Cowboys. Week 3 blew a 16-point lead against the Bears. And they just had a minus 18-point differential on the season. Lost 7 games by 5 or fewer points. However, they finished in last place in the division. But when you take a deeper look, third place Carolina had 5 wins. That's 1 more win. But they had a minus 52-point differential compared to the Falcons. So looking at it, you could argue that the Falcons were a better team than the Panthers last year. And you can argue that they have a lot to build on coming into this year. Looking at the additions they've made to that team, names such as Mike Davis, a guy who put up 1,000 yards from scrimmage last year in Carolina. Kyle Pitts, a generational talent at tight end. Richie Grant, a nice safety out of UCF. They brought some talent to Atlanta. And you still have Matt Ryan, who, like I said, won the MVP just 4 seasons ago. So looking at this, how do y'all feel about the Falcons coming into this upcoming NFL season?
Like you said, Nick, they lost a lot. They had a lot of bad losses on their schedule. Teams that have less than a 2-point differential aren't typically that bad. But personally, I think that a lot of that those close losses are related to the offensive defensive line. This is the O-line that gave up 41 sacks last year, top 5 worst in the field. And then you look at the defensive line, or even that front seven in general. Once you get past Deion Jones and Grady Jarrett, it's a whole lot of what if. So I think that was probably one of the biggest reasons why they weren't really able to close out those late games, because you get down, they weren't able to really maintain the whole lead. So I think that they're 1-8 in games decided by less than 5 points. That's really tough. That's more unlucky than anything else. I think they will definitely improve upon that. But the big jump that I guess people are foreseeing from 4-12 to 7-9, 8-8, that's not something I'm seeing. They still have to improve upon the offensive line. They still got to get some help on the edge rushers. Their free agency guy last year, Dante Fowler, really kind of disappointed. Outside of, the elephant in the room is, what do you do without Julio Jones? Calvin really is a guy that saved my fantasy season. 90 catches, almost 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. But outside of that, who are you really looking at? I know Kyle Pitts is highest drafted tight end ever, but how much expectation do you want to how high expectations do you really want to place on a rookie tight end? He's super versatile. He can line up, inline, outline, but he is physically dominant. I'll say that. But is he going to be the number one go-to guy out of the gate? That's the question. And with the obvious Julio comparison he's going to have, I don't want his career to be ruined just by expectations of him having to immediately produce. So for Atlanta, will they be better than 4-12? Yes. Will they be better than 6-10? Probably
not. The Falcons, they actually remind me of another team in the NFL, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. Team that a great offense, bro, but the defense is dookie water, bro. It's horrible. So, like you said, Josh, you got Deion Jones. After that, and Grady Jarrett, they're nice. They're nice products for the team. This secondary is the worst secondary in the NFL. The best player in the secondary is AJ Terrell.
Okay, he's a second-year guy. He's the best guy in the defense already. I'm the best guy in the secondary already.
Yeah. The last memory I have of AJ Terrell is him in the college football playoff getting cut up against LSU.
Jamar Chase.
That's the last memory I truly get.
We all know that was the last memory of AJ Terrell, but I don't think it's far-fetched to say he was the best rookie DB in the NFL this season.
Was he good? I didn't watch it.
How many Atlanta games did you watch, Nick? I don't think me and Vince watched any combined. So
I watched one Falcons game, and that was when they played the Cowboys last season. That's the only reason I watched it. The defense is piss poor. It's just like the Cowboys, bro. You got a nice receiving core, a proven quarterback. But Mike Davis, does he fit with that system in Atlanta? Mike Davis, he's a power horse back, bro. But they do have Cordell Patterson. They can use him on third downs. He can do nice things. But it's just like the fact there's too many hoes for the Falcons in this type of division. It's too many hoes. That is point blank. Period.
I'm gonna come back and talk with a little something, bro. Last season, the Falcons had a top 5 passing attack, 272 yards per game, and Julio only played in 9 games. Wasn't as dominant. So on the offensive side, I'm not worried about things, especially considering that the Falcons decided to part ways with Dan Quinn, and they hired Tennessee's offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith, this offseason. So looking at what Arthur Smith has been able to do in Tennessee, I think he'll be able to implement some of the same things in Atlanta using Mike Davis. Like I said, the guy had 1,000 scrimmage yards last season, spelling Christian McCaffrey. And of course, that's a vast improvement over Todd Gurley, a guy who only averaged 3.5 yards per attempt last season. I think you insert Mike Davis into that backfield, and you just look at the talent Atlanta has on offense, looking at Calvin Ridley, Hayden Hurst, like we said, Kyle Pitts, Cordell Patterson. This can be a very versatile offensive attack that can start with a solid run game. You look at Arthur Smith, bro. Even Sean McVay has admitted that he's been stealing from Arthur Smith, bro. And this is the second time that a Tennessee offensive coordinator has gotten a head coaching job. You look at Green Bay and LaFleur and the success they've had there with their offense. They just had the highest scoring offense in the league this past season. So I wouldn't be surprised if Arthur Smith can take this offense to another level and really lean on that offense to win some games. Yes, the defense is bad. They only had 29 sacks. They were one of the worst pass defenses. They were actually the worst pass defense in the league. But you look at a guy like AJ Terrell, and that's something to build on and keep, you know what I'm saying, keep improving. So the pieces are in place in Atlanta. It just depends on how Arthur Smith comes in, and I think you can lean on that offense to win you some games.
Offensive pieces are in place.
How many games? How many games do you think? Just truly against the Saints. Against the Panthers.
Tampa for fourth in the division.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Falcons end up being the second or third in the division.
Over who? Carolina or New Orleans?
I think Tampa Bay is a lock at 1. And I think the bottom 3 teams are kind of a toss-up.
I think Jameis Winston with one hand, and that New Orleans defense could beat Atlanta. I'm just saying. He hasn't had shown up the best. But, I mean, like we said, we've done 2 of these divisional breakdown episodes. On different sides of the ball, we also pointed different position groups to say that, they have struggles, they have weaknesses. But you look at Atlanta's whole defensive side of the ball, the whole defensive side is a weakness. And they don't have a Dak Prescott. I mean, Matt Ryan's going to put up really, really good regular season numbers. He's going to throw the ball around pretty efficiently. Like you said about Arthur Smith, I think him and Johnny Smith, him leading Johnny Smith's career year, him going to the Patriots, like you said, with Hayden Hurst and Kyle Pitts, I definitely think some of the 2 tight end sets that they'll have will, be able to get some good production out of those guys. But look at that defense. I don't know, maybe because I'm a hog molly, a defensive guy by nature, but I just don't see that defense winning them any game and being able to, what had changed from last year? What lead will they be able to hold if they get up, like you said, 9 points in the fourth quarter, 60 points in the fourth quarter, because their defense is so abysmal that there's no way to keep any sort of lead for any amount of time. So yeah, the offense will look good. They'll probably put up a lot of fantasy points, but I don't see them getting any more than 6 wins. I mean, they have the pieces to be good on offense, but on defense, you're looking at, again, probably the worst defense in the NFL. I know Van talked about having the worst secondary in the field, but there is absolutely no inspiration outside of Grady and Deion Jones in that front 7. And like you say, you talked about that secondary. They're not stopping anybody from scoring 30 points a game, and that's going to be a big problem for them. And I kind of wanted to lean towards, them having bad luck in these close fourth quarter games. But again, what are they gonna be able to do when their defense is on the field? Absolutely nothing. So pretty stats. It'll look good on the fantasy teams. I'll take a couple of Atlanta Falcons players on my team. But in terms of team success, I'm gonna stamp them for a 4th place division, a last place finish in the division again.
This is my last point on the Falcons. They brought in Dean Pease, the former defensive coordinator in Tennessee, as their new DC. I think he'll have some success in creating pressure with that unit. You look at what Tennessee was able to do last season without a true, pure pass rusher. They were still able to pressure the quarterback and make opposing quarterbacks' lives difficult. So I think that's a plus for the Falcons. And you also have to consider the Falcons have the 3rd easiest schedule in the NFL. I think they'll be able to win some games.
I mean, if they do, it'll be all shootouts. It'll be 42 to 38. I like Matt Ryan. I really don't like him that much, But he's not a Dak Prescott that keeps to single-handedly win you in the game. This is not 2017 Matt Rhule. So we see it different this time.
Say less. So now let's move on to the East Coast. Let's talk about the Carolina Panthers. This is a team that's had a lot of changes all season, and I'm excited to see how it goes. So starting out, this team went 5-11 last season, and it was an up and down season. 11 of their 16 games were decided by 8 or fewer points. So, but there were a lot of bright spots on this team last season. For the 5th time in NFL history, they had 4 players who reported over 1,000 yards from scrimmage, looking at DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel, and Mike Davis. And I just threw this out there to show y'all the versatility of a Joe Brady, Matt Rhule offense and how he gets a lot of guys involved. Now, unfortunately for the Panthers, Curtis Samuel and Mike Davis are no longer with the team. But you do have Christian McCaffrey coming back this year, and he should be, a dude yet again. We've seen him before the injury in 2019 and how he really came onto the scene with 1,000 receiving yards and 1,000 rushing yards. So look for Christian McCaffrey to be big this year. But coming into this year, bro, Carolina has focused on retooling that defense. In 2020, they used all 7 of their draft picks on defensive players, and a lot of those guys panned out for them. Looking at guys like Derrick Brown, Gross Matos, Jeremy Chin, who had 2 fumble recovery, 2 defensive touchdowns in the game. Kenny Robinson, they really retooled that defense, and it's helped them become a better team in the process. So, looking at this upcoming year, last year was Matt Rhule's first year as the head coach, and he had no preseason, none of that. And he said it really was problematic last season for him, trying to adjust to the game and just trying to learn the team because he didn't get to see the team face-to-face until spring training. He even said that the team's first game felt like a scrimmage just because he had never experienced nothing like that before, talking about an NFL game. So looking to 2021, what kind of leaps, improvements, just how do y'all see this Carolina team looking in 2021?
As much as I hate to say it, I think they're due for a big jump. You get as much as we support black men on this show. Teddy Bridgewater was really turnover prone. He just wasn't the solution to Carolina. You bring in a guy, Sam Darnold, a little bit of a higher ceiling, a little bit of a more prototypical guy, and you pair him with one of his favorite targets in New York with Robbie Anderson and put him around a lot more weapons and an actually competent head coach in Matt Rhule. So I think he's definitely due for a little bit of a bump right there. And honestly, that's gonna be the determining factor in how far the team can go. The O-line, being in the trenches, the O-line for this team is looking really, really, really sappy. Greg Little, they finally gave him up. The only certified starter they got in there is Taylor Moore, right tackle. But then you're looking at a whole bunch of journeymen of the other 4 spots: Cam Irvin, Matt Rhule. They drafted Brady Christian out of BYU, but O-line is the certified weakness of this team. So they, like you said, the team has a lot of weapons. Guys that they can spread the ball around to. You're getting arguably the best running back, the best all-around back in the game in Christian McCaffrey. But it's often not if the O-line can't protect and get them long enough. And then in terms of how we see them on the defensive side of the ball, this is kind of the key determining factor I see between them and Atlanta. You got guys like Nick said, like a Jeremy Chin, like a Derrick Brown, but also and then you trade for AJ Bowie, somebody that can really solidify that nickel spot, or even he's been an outside corner at the time of his career. But then on the D line, you have a certified superstar in my eye, and the guy in Brian Burns that double-digit sacks last year, and somebody that either your left or right tackle is gonna stay the word about at night. So that's when you talked about Atlanta being second, third in the NFC South, I just can't see it just because of the defensive pieces that you mentioned, Nick, that Carolina has. Better secondary, better front seven, and I think that they can compensate for the lack of QB production that may or may not have at the beginning of the season. But Joe Brady can auto-picking. I think he can spread out with the weapons that they got and the system that he had in place, coming from LSU and that Joe Burrow system and all the magic they may have in that championship run. I think they can kind of cover some of Sam Darnold's weaknesses and struggles in the beginning of the season. So I see them, 8-8. I think that Brian Burns takes another step. I think that Derrick Brown takes another step as well. Like you said, you got Jeremy Chin. This is a pretty good football team. They were up and down. They were inconsistent. They had a 3-game winning streak last year. But if they can put all the pieces together and Sam Darnold can be as consistent as unfortunately I think he could have been in New York if we just had a competent team around him, I think they're due for a big jump. And I think the same way you feel about Atlanta is how I feel about Carolina. They can go in. I would put this still in the second in NFC South and possibly, depending on how good Sam Darnold looks at the end of the season, competing for a wild card spot.
I actually agree with you, Josh. Everything you just said, I completely agree 100%. Just like you said, how Nick feels about the Falcons, I feel the same way about the Panthers. I think they have that type of ceiling. Besides the Buccaneers, you can even say they're the most complete team in the NFC South, bro. They might even have the best offense in the NFC South. Like, it really just depends on how Sam Darnold plays. They have a better running back than the Buccaneers. Everybody in this chat is gonna take Christian McCaffrey over Leonard Fournette. I don't care what you say. Bobby Anderson, top 20 receiver. DJ Moore, he can get you some fantasy points, bro. He'll win the one-on-one, the jump balls, everything you need. Terrace Marshall Jr., X Factor. How is he gonna come? I mean, if Terrace Marshall Jr. can be that third guy, get you 800, 900 yards in the slot, that goes from winning maybe 8, 9 games to winning 11 games to getting you in the playoffs. The defense, it's a deep defense. That's why I think they're the most complete team. I think they have possibly the best offense in the NFC South. I think they have the second best defense in the NFC South. And the thing about them, I would say there was three superstars in this draft defensively. It was Patrick Surtain, Michael Parsons, and J.C. Horn. And the Panthers, they hit with that. I think they're going to have 2 lockdown corners, one of the few teams in the NFL, the Broncos, the Patriots, the Rams, maybe the Packers. That's 4 teams. I think they're the 5th team. They're going to have 2 lockdowns.
I really think they got 3.
Huh? Booyah.
It's true. Yeah. So you can put one in the nickel. That's lock. You can put nickel the whole game. You know how rare that is in the NFL to get that. I like what I see from the Panthers, bro. We'll see how they can put it together.
Well, talking about putting it together, bro, just on a scale of 1 to 10, what is y'all's faith in Sam Darnold that he puts it together in this Joe Brady offense?
Y'all just keep hurting my heart, bro. Like, it's okay. Cut ties with him. He's no longer a Jet, and I wish him all the best. I can confidently say 8.5. He's not a guy that, the see and go comment always kind of threw me for a loop a little bit and caused me to challenge his mental capacity and his ability to read coverages. When you got a guy like Pat Mahomes saying he didn't know how to read coverages until his second year in the league, it really makes me question how important skill is. The talent he has around him, the system that's in place with Brady, the fact that Matt Rhule will be his second year in his first, I guess, regular year as a head coach. I think that also in a defense that can also keep them on the field and take pressure off them at certain times. They can go out there and win them a game. I'm pretty confident in Sam Darnold. I don't know if he's going to come out the gate, the game buster is, throwing 300 yards a game. But somebody that can, start off as a game manager, get the ball to his playmakers, hand the ball off to Christian McCaffrey. He doesn't have to do too much right now. That's the biggest thing for him. I think in New York, there was an overload of responsibility. So we kind of asked him to do everything. Which is the number 3 overall pick. It's not, out of the realm of possibility. But we see now, with these top 10 quarterbacks, these highly drafted quarterbacks, give them a year to sit down. Give them a year to get seasoned. Give them a year to take in the playbook and learn an NFL game. And I don't stand to get that chance in New York. And the season 8-7-2 now, he's going to be a starting quarterback, but he's not going to bear the brunt of the entire offense like he did in New York. So 8.5. I'll give him 8.5.
Only thing 8.5 about Sam Darnold is his forehead, bro. I'm gonna give me a 6. Honestly, bro, it's just like. Well, then again, I don't know, bro. He, like you said, he was with the Jets, bro. It's the Jets.
Hey, not too much, bro.
Just like let's say you had little Johnny. His whole life, he's went to Crenshaw High School. Textbooks were outdated. Fights every day at school. Maybe it's just the environment he was in. But now he's at prep school. He's at IMG. We're gonna see if we can get him right. He's finally in an offensive system that fits his style and an offensive line that can block for longer than 2 seconds. So I'm gonna say 6 for right now. You might be right with the 8.5. I just gotta see it first. Maybe it's the environment.
Well, I'm just gonna throw this out there, bro. Last season, this is a guy that in 12 games completed less than 6% of his passes, threw for 6.1 yards per attempt, 9 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. So it's got to be nowhere but up for this guy, right?
Yeah, I'm telling you, watching those games, he did not have okay, you got Robbie Anderson, you got DJ Moore. Who's the third? Who's the guy, the third best receiver?
Probably Terrence
David
Marshall
Moore.
step up. Oh, David Moore
Terrence
too.
Marshall too. You know, they did not have a guy on the team last year as good as Terrence Marshall right now. So that's going to solve a lot of those problems right now. We have competent guys that they're going to be able to throw the ball to. Now, again, I'm a Jets fan. I think Sam Darnold all the time. He did, you know, as much as we love to not hate him, but the ridiculous and the horrible stuff that he did put up, he did make a lot of plays happen behind that bad Jets line, those horrible Jets receivers. So I don't know if my bias is coming in, but I'm still fooled by the arm talent. I'm a Mike Mayock guy, but this is a guy that was taken top 3 in the draft for a reason. Definitely think that he didn't like Van said with his little Johnny reference. This is a guy that needed to get in the right environment and the right system, and I see him flourishing.
I'll hold you to it, bro. I'll hold you to it. So now moving down to New Orleans, this is a team that went 12-4 last year, but they lost in the divisional round to the Buccaneers 34-23 after beating them twice in the regular season. So looking at the Saints, bro, I think it's only fair that we go back through their recent playoff history just to make a certain demographic of people mad, bro. So, of course, this season, they lose to the Buccaneers and Tom Brady. Demolished them throughout the regular season, but, of course, Tom Brady came back, got it back in blood. Just going to leave it at that, gritty and all over Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So now we're going to throw it back to 2019, lost in the wild card to the Vikings. And you know who won that game for him? None other than big man Kyle Rudolph with the goal line fade on 4th down to steal the game yet again in Mercedes-Benz Superdome. 2018, I think we all know how that one went with Stephon Diggs throwing the helmet, the Minneapolis Miracle, whatever you want to call it. Chase Keenum defeats Drew Brees. So looking at this, bro, before we get into our predictions.
You have to do that, bro.
I enjoyed it myself personally. My New Orleans boys, don't take it. Hey, we stay straight facts on the pod, man. Y'all been going out pretty sad. Y'all been going out pretty sad. No cap.
I'm just saying, bro. In the playoff games, I'm finna throw a little bit more at y'all, bro. Everybody in New Orleans, greatest quarterback of all time, Drew Brees. In those 3 playoff game losses, my man's had 7 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, completed 65% of his passes, and threw for 885 yards.
Oh, well, he was on track for 30 for 30, just like Jameis. Jameis don't fit right there.
Wow.
So, before we get into our little preview,
we're gonna get canceled in Louisiana.
It don't matter. Before we get into our little preview,
they can't listen that well, anyways.
They can't talk either.
They're not a copy.
Facts. I mean, they make groceries, bro. You tell me how much sense that makes. Bro. You tell me you go to the grocery store and make your own groceries. I don't see you picking no grapes.
Comprehension is low in Louisiana. Man, let's play some football though.
Hey, no cap, bro. No cap. But like I said, before we get into the preview, did the Saints waste the end of Drew Brees' career? Is that one ring in 2009 was the only ring they got in their only Super Bowl appearance?
They was winning in spite of Drew Brees, bro. Yeah, especially the last 2 seasons. Yes, that's facts.
I mean, he was looking a little Peyton Manning out there, but him and Sean Payton, they had like the Stockton Malone thing going. I wouldn't say in spite of Drew Brees. I mean, he was a Pro Bowl all-pro quarterback for 10 years straight in New Orleans. I think it was more than enough time for him to got to be carried by a defense and a receiving core. So, but yeah, you put it in the black and white terms like that, to be the NFL career leader in passing yards, to be kind of a savior for that city, I think is a little bit of weight. You all that one Super Bowl, all that postseason heartbreak, and then constantly losing to teams that I feel like weren't better than you in the postseason. I think it could be considered a waste. No fault I would say of Drew Brees, but just more unfortunate circumstances coming from Louisiana. That's how you color that up.
Well, I'm gonna be blunt here. It's Drew Brees' fault they ain't got another ring, man.
Thanks.
This past 3 years, all New Orleans people saying, "Oh, we ain't got no defense. We ain't got no defense." Well, the past 3 years, you've had a very elite defense. Looking at last season, this team was 4th in yards allowed. They have the 6th best pass defense, the 4th best rush defense, and they were 5th in points allowed. They were 8th in sacks and 3rd in turnovers created. And they led the NFC with 18 picks. Looking at that defense, bro, that's a defense that you can trot out any game, and you can trust that defense to win you some games, point blank, period. And that's what they did. Looking at Drew Brees last year, or towards the end of his career, up to week 10 last season, Drew Brees had only attempted 13 passes over 20 yards. And up to that week 10 mark, he had 5.2 air yards per completion. But even though that's true, this offense was still 5th in points scored with 482 points on the season. They lost Michael Thomas and Drew Brees for 4 games. They were still they went 3-1 in those 4 games with Taysom Hill as the starter. And still, this is a team, in my opinion, that's built around Alvin Kamara. And I think that's how we're going to see this team trend going into their post-Drew Brees era. So looking at this team, bro, what is y'all's expectations? What I want to start out with, who is y'all's expectation as starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints in 2021?
Ooh, man, good question. You don't pay Taysom all that money to have it with the headset and the cap on. That's all I'm gonna say. You know, they invested him. They kind of kept him around for a long time. They only signed Jameis through next season, and Taysom Hill always he's not as good as a pure passer, I say, as Jameis, but he always a lot more things outside of the pocket, and with his leg, and he's a decent enough passer, and he has enough weapons around him with Marquez Callaway, Deontay Harris, and then turning around and handing the ball off to Alvin Kamara. This can be a functional offense. Like Nick said, I think that this team, for so many years is known as, the offensive juggernaut. It will have to now rely upon the defense in that pass rush, in that DeMarco Davis, that front seven, and some of the guys in that secondary. But again, you don't pay him all that money. You don't pay him $70 million to have a clipboard in his hand. So based on that fact alone, I would go with Taysom Hill.
I think Jameis Winston is going to be the starting quarterback. I think he has better arm talent. I think he's a good enough runner to be the quarterback. And in terms of getting Taysom Hill on the field, bro, I'm looking at the depth chart right now. Their starting tight end is Adam Troutman, bro. I don't even know who that is, where he comes from. They can put Taysom Hill right there to be the other tight end when it's a passing route. He'll fit on the field just fine. You got him for special teams, everything you need. He could be in the backfield. He can run a 2-quarterback set. You can have 2 guys back there. Who knows? Trust me. Sean Payton's one of the best coaches in the NFL. He will find a way. But I'm going to say Jameis Winston is the answer. If you want, he has a higher ceiling. He can win you more games. You can't win a Super Bowl with Taysom Hill at quarterback.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Vance here, bro. You look at Taysom Hill, bro, he's just a white Joe Webb, if we're being honest, bro. If we're being entirely honest.
Joe Webb? Boy, you pulled that one out your ass, man.
But looking at Taysom Hill, bro, I think we got to take a deeper dive and just look at it, bro. Yes, he went 3-1 last season as the starter when Drew Brees went down. But that was 2 wins over Atlanta. And the win over Denver without Drew Lock because of COVID, that was when basically Denver's whole quarterback room had COVID and they had to start wide receiver. Let me rephrase that. Practice squad wide receiver, Kendall Hinton at quarterback. So those 3 losses got some asterisks on it. But you look at what Jameis Winston brings, especially in that preseason game versus the Jags on Monday night. Jameis put on a show in the first quarter, in my opinion. And him and Marquez Callaway put on a show, point blank, period. And with Taysom Hill, you can still use him the way you used him with Drew Brees, as an H-back, as a tight end, as a blocker, as your speed option, read option quarterback. So I think putting Jameis as your starting quarterback gives you a better chance to win. And I think Jameis is kind of itching for that chance to become a starter again. I think he's going to meet those expectations just because he hasn't started an NFL game in, 2 years now? So I think he's itching at this opportunity. And he got LASIK eye surgery, bro. He's back.
Yeah. Him getting beat up by the tackling dummies in practice never really helped him out in terms of his persona. And again, I'll say this. I think Jameis Winston probably should be the week 1 starting quarterback and take that team a little bit higher? Yes, I definitely do. But the front office seems to have made the decision before Sean Payton could. With the extensions, we're only signing Jameis through 1 year. And then, even with the preseason performance with Jameis showing out and Taysom Hill still getting a lot of the one reps, I think, they've been going back and forth and they said they haven't really named the starter. But again, I don't think that you go into week 1. I don't think it's a doubt in my mind that Taysom Hill is going to be the one to start. And, I don't know what they do because he's not a traditional quarterback. Maybe they go to some type of offense. They really invest in running the ball. They got a great offensive line, 2 booking tackles in Pete and Ryan Ramczyk. Maybe that's the route that they go and really just try to beat you up on the ground. But you got Michael Thomas out. Marquez Callaway looks really good. I don't know if he's going to be able to just step in into a receiver 1 right now, week 1. There's a lot of questions about how this offense can move the ball throughout the air in general. So maybe they just stick it to ground and pound.
That's a good idea, but if you look at Alvin Kamara, bro, like in his every year he's been in the NFL, he hasn't played a full season yet. The most he played in 15 games last season. No, the year before that. I think he got hurt it was last season. He played 15 games last season. That's the most games he played his whole career.
They still got Latavius Murray back there, somebody that's used to being bell cow. They can take off some of the pressure off him. That showed up really well last year and kind of emerged from that. Kind of emerged as a guy that could take 10 to 15 carries a game and not press AK and make him a workhorse. And they can use him in a variety of different ways. So looking at it objectively, the strength of this team is their front 7 and their running attack. So it may sound real 1950-ish smash mouth football. But this game is going to be one for them with that defensive line and with their running game.
Do you think the Super Bowl ceiling's gone? Do you think it's closed?
Most definitely.
Sure.
It's gone. It's over with.
The way us talking through it, I really see them in 3rd behind Carolina in this division. Unless either Jameis or Taysom really comes out and shows some talent, or one of these receivers that kind of unknown right now really steps up. I wouldn't put a mark past Marquez Callaway at this point. He out there looking like Odell. But unless something really special happens for them, they're not going to be able to consistently move the ball against any competent secondary in the league. And then we just rehashed. You got Carolina, you got Tampa Bay, you got you got Atlanta. They might torch up Atlanta a little bit, but you got 2 competent secondaries in this division that's going to be able to essentially man you up all game. And they're one of those receivers, to get off press coverage, or they're one of your quarterbacks to make a good throw, in 20, 25 times a game. And I don't see either Jameis or Taysom Hill being able to do that. So I don't know if AK needs to have 2,000 yards on the ground, or Taysom Hill needs to, turn into Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. We didn't know about it. But they're going to really struggle just in this division to generate a legit, efficient passing offense.
And so here's my last point about the Saints. This offseason, they lose Trey Hendrickson, led the team with 13.5 sacks.
Gutted. Whole defense gutted. Front 7 gutted for the most part.
Ooh. So how do you feel about that defense coming in this season? So is this a big deal for the Saints, considering that they traded up to draft Marcus Davenport 2 years ago, and seemingly could he step into that role?
Here's the thing. You still got Cam Jordan, one of the I would say top 5 edge rushers of not all time in the NFL right now. A little bit. He broke last year. He only had 8.5 sacks. Broke a 3-year streak of 12 plus sacks each season. So Trey Henderson, we've seen kind of these 1-year wonders. I would say Shaq Barrett to a lesser extent, the guys that kind of break out in terms of the sack totals, either by scheme or by pressure, or even having an elite edge rusher on the other side that other teams have to pay attention to. So, Davenport is somebody I really like. Carl Granderson is somebody also I really like. But personally, knowing how D-line works and knowing how the offensive line shifts and fast things like that, I would say the interior losses they had with Sheldon Rankins, Malcolm Brown, those will be probably not more effective, more worrisome in terms of generating interior pressure and the tackles in these offensive linemen not having to exert as much energy on these pass rush, the edge rushes that New Orleans has. So you still got Demario Davis, you still got Marcus Lattimore. Not sure if he's still the number 1 cornerback or not. Nick can probably tell me better than that. But quarterbacks are more afraid of pressure in their face than off the edge anyways. So Cam Jordan needs to have a bounce back season. But even if he does, I just don't really see the defense being able to hold up the end, to carry the weight of the team like it has in the previous couple seasons. And you talk about a shaky defense at the best, a shaky passing game in the league where it's essentially basketball on air. Looks a lot like 8-8. I'll say that 8-8, 7-9, in case something drastically happens.
I think it's gonna losing the guy for the Bengals. What's his name? Trey
Hendrickson.
Trey Hendrickson. I don't know why I had a brain fart, but losing Trey Hendrickson, I think it's gonna hurt them in terms of only be able to have to send 4 guys instead of sending a blitz. Now you're gonna have to blitz a lot more just to get that same pressure. Marcus Davenport, he's a great player. He's a good player. I'm not sure if he's great. Can he get there? Of course he can. But I think they're gonna be fine as long as they blitz. They're gonna have to blitz more, which is not a problem, bro. But it's nice to be able to just sit guys in coverage and only rush 4. But you still got Quan Alexander, DeMario Davis that you can send on blitzes at the linebacker position. I think they'll be fine. I think Dennis Allen, he's a great defensive coordinator. Saints have one of the best coaching staffs in the NFL, and that shows year in and year out.
I can't let you slide with that, Beth. I mean, Marcus Davenport is a long leg, a taller guy. I think Cam Jordan and Trey Henderson was really the primary reason for his development. They drafted a guy out of Houston, Payne Turner, at 28. We'll see. A lot of people thought they reached for him at the back end of the first round, but kind of a highway speed guy, but kind of one of those physical freaks that a prototypical edge rusher. He looks like a prototypical edge rusher, but I just don't see it. You lose a starting corner in Janoris Jenkins. We always talk about again how Margaret Lattimore is only a C corner when he's not faced up against Mike Evans, and you're not replenishing with that defense with a lot of stuff. So again, you're looking at a defense that's taking some knocks. You're looking at an offense that, despite Drew Brees pulling off his Denver Broncos Peyton Manning impression, was still an efficient quarterback and know how to manage the game. To now a completely unknown at quarterback. So your defense isn't as good as last year, and your offense is seemingly going to put more pressure on that defense to need to be as good as it was. So those two things don't mix at all. And it's a recipe for disaster. So either AK needs to have 2,000 yards. They need to have one of these rookies, Peyton Turner, these young pass rushers really step up and take that next step and become a consistent double-digit guy. Or it's going to be a dogfight for New Orleans week in and week out to get to 8-8.
So to sum it all up, bro, New Orleans, you have no hope. I don't want to hear no talks about we going to the Super Bowl. I don't want to hear nobody say Mike Thomas the best receiver in the league. I don't want to hear none of that. It's over. Y'all are done. Take your seat, please. So with that,
the best thing y'all got going for y'all right now is Zion.
And he can't dress.
Nick don't even like Zion.
I just hope y'all enjoy y'all snowballs, y'all daiquiris, all of that. Because New Orleans sports. New Orleans sports, y'all gonna take a little hiatus for a little minute. Just so y'all know.
Just a long bit. The food's still slamming though. I will say that.
Oh God, Zion cannot dress.
Just like we do all these previews, how do y'all see the NFC South shaking up at the end of the year?
I got Tampa Bay at 4. That would be asinine. Tampa Bay, I think we said it's a lock for 1. Discussing how much we just down on the Saints. I might have put them third. I know I went out of order, but just because of name recognition and relevancy and the target demographic of this show, I think it's important to realize that Carolina will be a better team than them. I got Carolina in the second place in the division. Like I said, the steps that Joe Brady, Sam Darnold, and the weapons that he got around him, I definitely think that he's kind of stepping into his role as a starting quarterback. And New Orleans need to be careful because I got Atlanta in the 4th spot right now. But depending on what Kyle Pitts does, depending on what Arthur Smith does with these 2 tight end sets, they could end up being last in the division. Very easy. I'll say that. So I'll go Atlanta, Carolina, New Orleans, Atlanta for right now. Tampa Bay, Carolina, New Orleans, and Atlanta for right now. But if Taysom Hill is as bad as we think he is, or Jameis Winston, his lazy surgery wears off, it could look a lot like 6-10 for them. 5-11, or 5-13, or 5-12, 4-13. So hey, y'all got Zion, y'all got good food, y'all got good looking women, but football is gonna be a little MIA for y'all for a minute.
I'm gonna go with the Falcons at 4-13 in fourth place. Third place, I'm gonna go with the Panthers at 8-9. Like, it's gonna be a lot of toss-up games. They can end up winning 10, 11, 12 games. It's very much possible. But I'm gonna go at 8-9 for now. I gotta see it to believe it. Second place. Before we started this podcast, I actually had a tie for first place with the Saints and the Buccaneers. Believe at 13-4. But you guys don't peer pressure me and bully me into giving the Saints second place at 10-7. Honestly, but first place, of course, I'm gonna have to go with the Buccaneers at 13-4, and that's my rankings.
Okay, so for me, outside of the Bucs at number 1, I think you're gonna see a lot of 8, 9, even 10-win teams in the bottom 3 of this division. So with that being said, I got the Panthers at number 2, Falcons at number 3, and the sad-ass Saints at number 4.
Eesh.
Ooh, dang. I don't know. I think
fans are annoying though.
Don't win them a game or two. I mean, the Superdome is a tough place to go in to win games, but
Not
they
for the
gonna be
Vikings.
because of the talent on the field.
Not for the Rams. Not for Tampa
He
Bay.
said it, not me, y'all.
Right. No,
He said
if you went to Millsap, you would understand, Josh, bro.
You think it's not a lot of Louisiana people out here? All these 504 boys tearing up.
I don't know.
I almost said some incriminating stuff.
Where you at?
I
You in
love my
Houston?
Louisiana. Yeah. All these Louisiana.
Y'all still got massage parlors?
Wow. Hey, cut it off, Nick. He had a pocket now, bro. He don't know what to do with this stuff.
And so we finna close this episode out, man. It's nothing personal to you if you got a 504 area code, live in New Orleans or the greater, you know what I'm saying, New Orleans area.
Oh, you
We
say
just not
bad,
big
you heard me.
We just not big fans of the Saints, bro. I'm sorry. Just don't take it personal. But with that anyway, bro, make sure y'all tune in for the rest of our previews, and we out of here.